Welcome to Short Stories Podcast, your go-to podcast for gripping short stories perfect for dog walks, bus rides, and everyday chores. Each episode delivers a bite-sized adventure, vivid, heartfelt, and crafted to spark your imagination while you move through your day. From boisterous adventures to quiet triumphs, our stories fit your busy moments. Plug in, press play, and let the narrative carry you. New episodes drop weekly, so subscribe now and make every task a tale. For today's episode, we have Terrior by the show's creator, Anne. In this short and quirky detective story, a social media post accusation sends a suburban mom out on a hunt for the truth.
Tears formed at the corners of my eyes, bleary from staring at my laptop too long, while Cheetos dust coated my fingers and left crumbs scattered like snowflakes across my mousepad as I scrolled through my feed. Studies can warn all they want about excessive screen time, but the trance of cute animal videos and firefighters lip-syncing to 80s power ballads is my pre-bed ritual. It drowns out the nagging guilt of not scheduling an overdue dentist appointment or the pressing reminder of an impending work deadline or social engagement that I have yet to confirm my presence at. To hell with all of that. Just give me one more panda climbing on the zookeeper clip, and then I will shut it all down and go to sleep. I swear. In any case, there I sat, glued to my feed and swiping up when I saw it. It being a post by Blake, a mother of one of my son's baseball friends, and a woman I knew from fundraising events. She goes by Blake on account of aspiring to be Blake Lively, but her best friend once told me over too many brunch margaritas that her real name is Blossom. I guess her parents were the real hippies chasing rainbow buses sort, but I digress. The woman is a nice, practical lady who always sprinkles extra cheese on hot dogs when volunteering at the baseball stand. She has a good smile, the warm type that leaves dimples burrowed in the cheeks, and never gossips, unlike her best friend. And so seeing her profile picture next to a lot of screaming in all caps, and a flurry of exclamation points obviously stopped me dead in my tracks. Tonight, she was doing anything but smiling. Allegedly, her neighbor, Ken Sampson, had blasted an air horn at her Jack Russell Terrier named Sprinkles after he had lured the dog onto his lawn. The post was frantic and accusing, but the pictures were so wonderfully cute, at least most of them. Sprinkles frozen midair like a cartoon, ears flapping with his eyes bugging out like that old coyote that was always foiled in his pursuits of the roadrunner. But then the last shots weren't so cute. In the last few, the tricolored terrier hid and cowered beneath a lawn chair with its ears pulled back in fear. Blake, the baseball mom with a dimpled smile and a knack for extra nacho cheese at the concession stand, was not cheery in her accusations. She called Sampson a dog-terrorizing menace. She accused him of luring her dog over and then having fun at his expense. Blake ended her post crying that someone needs to put him in his place right now. I grimaced. Ours was not a tiny town, nor was it the biggest. Just a cozy suburb. You could almost call it an exurb, really. The place is populated by a healthy mix of those who grew up here and those who have grown tired of what little craziness some of the larger suburbs offered. Those willing to make the hour commute into the big city so they could come back and enjoy open skies and green lawns. I am in the former category, one who had grown up nearby and simply stayed because it was all the easier and, well, I liked the amenities. Mock if you must, but cooling down in a large pool with your best friends after a day of shuffling around kids is the bee's knees. But I digress. In any case, I just happen to know Sampson as someone more than an old coot who lived down the street from me. Sampson used to be my old boss. Years and years ago, I worked at his hardware store. This was back before I had Macs, and even then I thought him ancient. He was always a wiry-looking guy with bushy eyebrows that arched like startled cats when puzzled. Look up workaholic in the dictionary and you'll find Sampson. A guy who alphabetized screws, but never struck me as cruel. A man who obsessed over entering the annual heirloom tomato competition every year, but who I doubted would ever want to hurt an animal. But that wasn't what this post seemed to suggest. The post, public and viral on the neighborhood group, had hundreds of comments, some offering sympathy, others demanding Sampson's exile to an imaginary dog-hater island. I scrolled, chuckling at the absurdity, but some of the comments started to give me pause. The locals were really piling on. Russ, our HOA chair, claimed Mr. Sampson once yelled at a squirrel for stealing birdseed. Another swore he'd shaken a rake at a stray cat. The haters got wilder with people whose names I vaguely recognized from the community newsletters, called him a pet-hating tyrant, and worse. Someone posted a blurry photo of the old man frowning at a picnic, captioned, "Proof he's always hated fun." I mean, sure, I remember him back in those store days. Him muttering about crooked displays, his younger wife with bright box-dyed red hair storming in and bickering with him over late bills. Loud, sure, but dangerous? I wasn't buying it. Sprinkles was alive, just spooked. Why the mob? I started typing a defense, but then paused. Memories stayed my hand and cautioned me against adding fuel to the fire, as my late-night rants never quite ended well in the past, especially when I wanted a devil's advocate on the opposite end of the blaze. So instead, I turned the screen off and snuggled beneath the covers. Tomorrow. Maybe. Morning came, and before I even flung the covers off, I had my phone back in my hand, opening up the social media app. Blake's post was at the top of the feed, and boy, had it grown overnight. The comments were now in the thousands, with words of affirmation and accusation peppered alongside memes of Mr. Sampson as a cartoon villain twirling a mustache. Maybe I laughed at some of them, but still, I couldn't hide the twinge of unease growing in my gut. I had once chided my next-door neighbor's dog when it stole my slipper and paraded it through a mud pit. Could her antics and my response have sparked a viral witch hunt? Or, once my own cat had escaped and gotten that same pup a few nasty scratches across its side? I had paid out the vet bill, but if I hadn't, or if Mrs. Tamio had been more out of sorts, would we be at the center of the drama right now? All of our own worst days paraded out before us in the harsh digital light of an iPhone set to full brightness? I needed to know the truth. The truth of whether Sampson really did have a dangerous streak running beneath, or whether this had been the result of a few too many dog-gone-wrong escapades. Blake had written in an update to her original post that her beloved Sprinkles had no aggression issues and would never leave the yard unbidden. Over breakfast, my son underscored the dog's obedience. He gushed, while the little terrier was always rifling through your things, he was extraordinarily well-behaved and could even stand on two legs if you said the right command and held a good treat. Something tugged at me. I needed answers. I packed the lunches, kissed the husband goodbye, corralled the kids to the bus stop, and then I called in sick. I was going to get answers. The rest of the household squared away. I hopped into the Odyssey and kicked it into drive. As my dad has always been fond of advising, if you're after some pesky flies, best to bring the honey. The right type of honey for the right type of fly. To the farmer's market it was then, where I paid a little too much for a little too large bouquet of daisies and sunflowers. After grabbing a gorgeous vase from another vendor to stuff the flowers in and an egg and cheese croissant to stuff my face on, the mission was starting to take shape. Whispers about dog attacks and outdoor pet hijinks followed me as I wandered the market. The comments invigorated me, and I quickly shuffled back out to the parking lot where I packed the goods into the Odyssey. It was a beautiful morning. You might even call it an archetypal autumn morning, with just the right drop in temperature, a coolness that required a good flannel but didn't get to the bones. The leaves were deep in their changes, and I passed several large oaks boasting red and orange-tinged canopies as I navigated my gasoline-fueled steed down the drive. Truly, I had almost forgotten the now infamous duo altogether, and even had a whistle on my lips when I turned the corner and saw their homes peek out at the end of the cul-de-sac. Not wanting to pick sides, I chose a nice spot down the lane to park. Sampson's blue ranch house sat quiet at the end of the cul-de-sac. His pristine 1957 Chevy Bel Air was parked neatly behind a black iron fence with pointy tops. Just above the carport hung a "Trespassers Beware, we don't call the cops here" sign. I let out a sigh and shook my head. A touch overkill, isn't it, old man? But then I saw the red paint scrawled out on the sidewalk in front of his home. The jagged letters spelling, "Animal Abuser." At the border between Sampson and Blake's backyard stood a second fence on Blake's side. This one was all wooden, about a foot higher, and blocked the view into the baseball family's backyard. Two more modern sedans graced Blake's driveway, with a few other cars parked directly out front on the curb. I strolled past, vase held tight to my chest, when I spotted something odd. A smear of mud and red juice at the base of Blake's fence just near the front corner of where it met with Sampson's. Just where it was built along the border of Mr. Sampson's prized tomato garden. I squatted down and shifted the vased flowers to one side, and snaked my right hand through the iron fence. The slats swung back with the lightest of touches. Just as I thought, a door slammed somewhere in the distance. And the next thing I know, a brown and white fluff ball is busting out of the fence boards like a convict breaking out of the penitentiary. The blur of fur and claws zipped effortlessly between the rails of Sampson's iron fence and slammed into me like a missile. The force sent me reeling, and I toppled backwards onto the sidewalk. The ceramic vase flew from my hand and shattered on the cement beside me. Through the cloud of dirt and petals, a familiar grinning face appeared. I eagerly shuffled into my jacket pocket, pulled out my phone, and took a quick snapshot of the little tomato-stained terror. Giggling at the sight, I pushed myself up and brushed the gravel from my jeans just as Blake's front door flew open. She sprinted out and scooped up the unrepentant Sprinkles. Her curls bounced as she scolded the little terrier who just looked up at her with sorrowful eyes, and a mangled flower tucked in the back of his jaws. Crushed tomatoes dripped down his front paws and bled ever so slightly on his owner's blouse. Blake turned to me, eyebrows raised. I grinned back. Just beyond her, Sampson's curtain twitched. The man was home and had seen it all. This time, though, he wasn't the only one. "Okay, fine. You've caught me. Sprinkles keeps escaping," Blake said exasperatedly. That old grump just blared his stupid horn, and I came running to get him. I nodded and took a step to the right to pointedly take another picture, this one of the crushed tomatoes and muddy paw prints on Mr. Sampson's side of the fence. "Ever notice that?" I asked. Her cheeks flushed. "Just this morning, after I updated my post. He's been getting into the grump's tomatoes, hasn't he?" We both looked down at the suspect's red paws and laugh. Sprinkles was no sly convict. He wore the evidence of his crimes quite proudly. The scowl on Blake's face melted into that warm, dimpled smile I remembered from the concession stand. She promised to go over and apologize. I promised not to give her the same smear treatment she'd given our neighbor. Once the Odyssey and I were safely back home, I opened up my laptop and flexed my fingers. Now was the time to set the record straight. Blake had given a small little update apology, saying that she had talked to Mr. Sampson, and all was well, that ends well. Not quite enough, Blake, I said to myself. Our feed was after all still buzzing with anti-Sampson memes. Not quite enough. So I uploaded the photos of Sprinkles, mid-flower collision, and captioned the post. Meet the real neighborhood menace, Sprinkles, escape artist extraordinaire. This time, instead of his ears pinned in fear, they flipped forward with the perkiness of a pup ready to pounce. I added a quip about Sampson's air horn being his only defense against this colorful terrier's reign of terror, and was sure to emphasize the crushed and muddied remains of Mr. Sampson's beloved heirloom tomatoes. The comments started to shift. First a trickle, then an avalanche, as people laughed and shared their own pet chaos stories. In about the same amount of time that the tide grew to a tsunami last night, the online mob fizzled into a cozy, feel-good story this evening. My husband came over with a glass of wine to give a toast to peace in the neighborhood. As I took a sip, my faithful phone buzzed with a text. It was Blake admitting she'd fixed the fence, and adding that Sampson even thanked her for it. No air horn in sight. Satisfied, I closed the laptop for the night and exchanged it for a new bag of Cheetos and a beloved dog-eared book. Social media stories aren't all bad, but sometimes you do need little and real-life adjustments to keep things positive.
Thanks for joining us on this bite-sized adventure with Short Stories Podcast. If you enjoyed that tale, smash that like button and hit subscribe to catch fresh stories every week. Share the journey, and let's make every moment a story worth hearing. Which, if you have your own stories you want shared, our email box is open. Stories selected for the podcast will receive a small payment in return. Contact admin at shortstoriespodcast.com to learn more.